The Trees, poem written by Adrienne Rich. Adrienne Rich was born in Baltimore, USA. She was a famous poet, essayist, and feminist. This poem presents a conflict between men and nature. The poetess suggests here that the trees and plants used in the interior decoration in cities are as imprisoned. They need freedom. These trees want to move out to the forest where trees decreasing day by day due to cutting. The poetess says that everything has a deep desire for freedom. It is necessary for growth and well-being. We must follow the nature of laws. In this poem, I is the voice of the speaker of the poem, that is Adrian Rich. Poem The Trees is the voice with a body engaged in activities and sensing intrusions that are not organic to the conventions of a nature poem. This is actually an unnatural poem that narrates the struggle of a population of trees to escape the confined surrounding of a greenhouse. Through the trees, this poem demonstrates the unsuitability of the language itself as a greenhouse. The poetess is the witness for the trees' exodus by making distance herself from participating in the making of something out of the spectacle. She can sit and write too. Even though the speaker addresses the audience, her own head is full of whispers, and she is an audience as well. We, however, the audience to the poem, are compelled with the command. The speaker reaches across the barrier between the poem and the audience, a transaction that occurs on the page and says while listening. Poetess articulates her consciousness of the many level of inner and outer and the blurring of the boundaries between them. In the poem, the trees are in the house of the poet. Their roots work all night to disengage themselves from the cracks of the floor in the veranda. The leaves are making efforts to move towards the glass. An open door is for the night and the whole moon and the sky is available to the speaker. This tree is at the same time through this door the smell of the leaves still reaches back in the speaker's head is another interior and implicitly entered by the whispers. The poetess is especially intrigued by the image of the trees similar to newly discharged patients. The poet is making a comparison to the long cramped branches which are shuffling under the roof with the newly discharged patients from the hospital. As they are moving towards the hospital doors after their long illness, the branches have cramped under the gaps with the roof. Therefore, they want to get out into the open to spread themselves in the fresh air. Now, the conclusion of the trees. The tree is a short symbolic poem and it focuses on the movement of trees that are initially indoor but seeking to escape to freedom in the forest. The trees represent the nature and womanhood in particular. Question answers of the poem. First, find in the first stanza three things that cannot happen in a treeless forest. The three things mentioned in the first stanza that cannot happen in a treeless forest are birds sitting on the tree branches, the hiding of insects in the branches of trees, the sun burying its feet in the shadow of the trees in the forest. Next, what picture do these words create in your mind? Sun bury its feet in shadow. What could the poet mean by the sun feet? Feet. The sun's feet are the rays of the sun that reaches the earth after falling on the leaves of the trees and finally reach the earth's surface. Where are the trees in the poem? What do their root and leaves and their twigs do? The trees in the poet's house. The roots are working hard to remove themselves from the cracks of veranda. The leaves are making an effort to reach towards the glass in order to come out, and twigs are making attempts to see themselves free and reach the forest. Next, what does the poet compare their branches to? The poet uses the word long cramped for the branches. She says that the branches are trying hard to come out of the roof. She then compares them with newly discharged patients who are trying to move out in their half consciousness. Next, how does the poet describe the moon at the beginning of the third stanza and at its end? What causes this change? The poet describes the moon as a full moon in the beginning of the third stanza, But at the end of the stanza, she describes it to be broken into pieces. The change in the moon is because of the trees. The trees that earlier were in the poet's house have now reached the forest. Their long branches have cast a shadow on the full moon, and now it appears to be broken into pieces like a mirror. What happens to the house when the trees move out of it? The house becomes silent as the fragrance of the leaves and lichens, which was like a voice urging for a change, can no longer be smelled. Next, what do you think the poet does not mention the departure of the forest from the house in her letters? Could it be what we are often silent about, important happenings that are so unexpected that they embarrass us? Think about this again when you answer the next set of a question. Now, the answer, the poet did not mention the departure of the forest from her house because it is a part of the human nature to ignore the important matters of their life. We all know that trees are so important for our survival on earth, but still human beings are cutting them for making profits without even thinking of the aftermath. Now that you have read the poem in detail, we can begin to ask what the poem might mean. Here are two suggestions. Can you think of others? Does the poem present a conflict between man and nature? Compare it with a tiger in the zoo. Is the poet suggesting that plants and trees used for interior decoration in cities while forests are cut down are imprisoned and need to break out? Yes, the poem presents a conflict between man and nature. Man is causing deforestation by cutting down the trees for his own use. On the other hand, he decorates his house with the trees. We are damaging our environment without even thinking about the end results. By clearing up the forest, we are endangering ourselves. So is with the animals too. We are ruining their natural habitat and killing them for our fun or food, but on the other hand, we are keeping them in the cages on the pretext of safeguarding them by making sanctuaries and zoos. So it is true that we are in a direct conflict with the nature and making the other living beings imprisoners, be it the trees or animals. On the other hand, Adrian Rich has been known to use trees as a metaphor for human beings. This is a recurrent image in her poetry. What new meanings emerge from the poem if you take its trees to be symbolic of this particular meaning? Answer. If trees are to be taken as a symbol for human beings, then the poem will define the efforts of humans to free themselves from the clutches of the desire to achieve everything. All the human beings are under a constant pressure of being at the top in every field. Either they are forced by their own desire of doing so, or there is a constant peer pressure on them. So the human beings will set themselves free from this race and try to live a happy and peaceful life.